My girlfriend and I enjoy smoking. We live in a state where it is legal, but that wasn't the case 8 years ago when the event in this story I'm about to share took place. When we first met, she told me that she started smoking at a very young age. That will be important later in this story. So, about 9 months ago, while we were watching a TV show and drinking, my girlfriend told me that she was, but I would later find out that she framed a man to hide her promiscuity from her mom. Her confession would lead me on a path of discovery that would change our relationship and lead me to a newfound appreciation for freedom. It also exposed how shameful our boys and men are traumatized by false allegations and how the accusers are treated. Initially, I thought she was a victim, but I found out too many holes and inconsistencies in her stories that would ultimately lead to a forced confession. My girlfriend, 23, and I, 25, we are watching through TV on Sunday evening while drinking. The episode walks you through the investigation and capture of a that assaulted and murdered his minor victims. I would much rather play video games than watch true crime shows because I believe watching horror movies and watching true crime shows have a negative impact on the viewer's psyche. I prefer playing video games, but my girlfriend of 3 years is obsessed with watching true crime shows and would stay up all night to finish an episode. Back then, my girlfriend would often get mad at me for not spending enough time with her. She would accuse me of preferring playing video games than spending time with her. She would always say that to guilt me into spending more time with her or doing things she likes. On that Sunday, I knew she would be watching her favorite show. So before the show premiered, I bought a bottle of Califta Pinot Noir because I know that was her favorite wine. Since I would be watching a show that I don't like, I might as well get drunk while doing it. We both cuddled under a blanket on our couch as we watched the show. Halfway into the show, as we were drinking, she made a random statement that she was when she was a minor. Took me a while for it to sink in, as I thought she was talking about something that had to do with the show. When I realized what she just said, I said, "Seriously?" She looked away from the TV and stared at me before she asked, "You don't believe me?" I responded that I do, but this is the first time in a 3 year relationship that I have heard that from her. She told me that it was a horrifying experience and she doesn't like to talk about it. I asked her about the details of what happened, and she said that she was 15, living with her mom and younger sister, who was 13 at the time. Her dad worked on an oil rig. He wasn't home most of the time. A creepy neighbor moved into the house next to them with a family. The neighbor was young, early 20s at the time, with his girlfriend and newborn daughter. She claimed that he had a wandering eyes and has his sights set on my girlfriend and her sister. Her mom hated the neighbor because he smokes and sells and other drugs, doesn't care about mowing his lawn, and always hosting parties and had people coming and going through his property. My girlfriend's mom wanted them to stay away from him and anyone that comes out of that house. Her mom had to call the cops multiple times on him because of loud music and violating noise ordinance because he was hosting parties, but the cops would leave without any citation because they would turn it down before the cops get there. After the third time, the police warned her mom to stop calling 911 because of the same issue that had already been investigated. Then one evening, when they returned home and their home had been burglarized, the assailant broke through the window glass and removed the screen. That was how he gained access to the property. Turns out that someone came into their house and ransacked everything. They stole less than $1,000 worth of stuff, but it seemed like the entire police department was at their front lawn. The number one suspect was the neighbor because her mom told them that she suspected him. He had a prior, so he was an easy scapegoat. The police obtained a warrant and searched his house but couldn't find any stolen item. But they did find a large amount of and white powder. They arrested him. He posted bond and was released pending trial for drug possession and intent to distribute. The broken window and the screen were fixed, and then 2 weeks later, while she was sleeping in her room, someone broke in through her window and held her down, then took advantage of her. Her mom heard noises coming out of her room, then came to find out what it was. But before she could turn the light in her room on, the person jumped out of the window. Her mom claimed to have seen the silhouette of the neighbor. As soon as her mother came into the room, her mother already had someone in mind and asked my girlfriend if it was the neighbor. All my girlfriend had to do was confirm what her mom thought she saw. I asked my girlfriend how she knew it was the neighbor since the room was dark and she didn't see her perpetrator clearly. She responded that, and I quote, "It had to be him." Her response seemed ambivalent. She gave a statement to the police corroborated by her mom, and the neighbor was arrested. She was taken to the hospital and they found out that she had an sexual encounter in less than 24 hours. But the genetic samples they collected were inconclusive. Blood samples showed that she was under the influence of a found at the neighbor's property. She told me that she and her mom took the stand to testify, and the neighbor ended up getting a sentence of 25 to life in prison. The neighbor's girlfriend and newborn moved out of the neighborhood. After my girlfriend finished telling me the story, I was shocked and confused because her statement seemed contradictory to what she told me in the past about her virginity. You know, almost every couple asks questions about when they pop their cherry at some point in their relationship. And when I asked her in the first year of our relationship, she said at 17. Now she claims she was assaulted by her neighbor at 15. What about when she told me that she was sneaking in her boyfriend through the window to have excess with her? Was that before or after the assault? Something just didn't add up. I thought maybe she lied to me about sneaking her boyfriend into her room to avoid telling me about her traumatic experience. She told me the name of her neighbor, and I immediately went through my phone to read through news articles that I found online about her story. What I found was further inconsistencies with the story she told me. According to the article, the original victim of the story was initially her 13-year-old sister. Soon after the accusations were made, the 13-year-old kept changing her story and eventually admitted she was never assaulted. No criminal charges were filed against the neighbor or the 13-year-old sister that changed her story. Within 24 hours, my girlfriend then claimed that she was the one that was assaulted. She was taken to the hospital and genetic material was collected. The news article also claimed that the neighbor forced her to take, and the toxicology report proved that there were drugs in her system, which is why the news article claimed that she wasn't screaming when she was being assaulted. The neighbor was then arrested again, then charged with drugging a gross sexual imposition, unlawful sexual conduct with a minor, and kidnapping. Clearly, they were trying to throw everything at him, and the poor man was guilty before he stepped into the court. The case would eventually proceed to trial, during which my girlfriend's younger sister changed her story from being to being touched, and my girlfriend narrated a detailed account of how she was and assaulted in her home when her neighbor sneaked in through her window. Evidence presented by the prosecutors showed that she had access 24 hours before the genetic material, but the genetic material was inconclusive, and the drugs found in her system was the same found in her neighbor's house. No mention that she and her boyfriend were buying from the neighbor. The judge either dismissed the evidence or it wasn't brought up at all. I was previewed to that information because she told me earlier in our relationship, before we both smoked and experimented with recreational drugs as well. The following day, I confronted my girlfriend about the inconsistencies in her story. The news articles and the story she told me earlier in our relationship. She responded that her ex sneaking through her window doesn't mean that her creepy neighbor didn't sneak through her window as well. I asked her if she had ex with her boyfriend on the same day she accused her neighbor of assault, and she got visibly irritated by my questions. She accused me of not standing up for her and being a terrible boyfriend. She never answered the question. I remember my girlfriend telling me in the past of a man that sold drugs to her. I don't remember if it was her neighbor, but I assume it was. Earlier in our relationship, when I asked her the first time she started smoking, she told me that her neighbor used to sell her weed and sometimes buy alcohol for her and her boyfriend for parties. Realizing what I just uncovered, I was horrified that my girlfriend accused an innocent man of assault and the poor man was in prison serving 25 years to life. I became obsessed with the case, so I contacted the court recorder present to order the transcript. What I found out from the transcript was that my girlfriend claimed to be a virgin and had no boyfriend, which was another lie. In the court case, there were no mention that she bought from the neighbor or alcohol or any mention of she and her boyfriend purchasing illegal substance. With the article online, her statement to me when she was intoxicated, her statement when we started dating, and the court transcript, I was equipped with more than enough information about the case and decided to confront her the second time. Before I confronted her the second time, I recorded our conversation when she saw the overwhelming evidence that proved that her story was a lie and the man never assaulted her. She broke down and confessed on tape. She told me that the burglary in her house was done by her ex-boyfriend at the time. The neighbor was a drug dealer, that we know, and she and her boyfriend were buying from their neighbor and also alcohol because they were not old enough to buy alcohol from the store. On the night in question, she sneaked in her boyfriend through the window and they were doing drugs and having excess when her mother heard noises and came knocking. When her mother knocked on the door, Dan came in. Before she could turn on the light, her ex-boyfriend escaped through the window. She thought her mother saw her boyfriend, but then she realized that she didn't when she started asking her if it was the neighbor. She claimed that she had no idea how much trouble the neighbor was in as a result of the accusation and played along. She agreed with her mom because her mom didn't know that she had a boyfriend or was doing, and she was maybe afraid of what would happen if she found out. I asked her then how her sister got involved. She said that she got scared and asked her sister to cover for her, but when her sister's story fell apart, the police went with hers because they had more evidence and an eyewitness, her mother. I spent sleepless nights thinking about the poor man's family. His daughter must be about 8 or 9 years by now, thinking that her father was a how her life would be different if her dad was present to raise her. Don't get me wrong, her dad wasn't the model citizen, but you can't tell me that the man wasn't framed for a crime he didn't commit. When I asked my girlfriend if she doesn't feel bad for sending an innocent man to prison for a crime he didn't commit, she alluded to the fact that the man sold dealers. Therefore, he, and I quote, kind of deserved it, and he would contribute nothing but bad things to the society and good riddance. At that point, she showed me her true color, and I told her that I can no longer be in a relationship with her. Amazingly, she didn't understand why I was upset by this. I arrived at the conclusion that she's a sociopath, and I broke up with her. In her mind, she believed that her neighbor would be in jail with or without her help. She refused to take the blame that she was in jail because she wanted to cover the fact that her mom caught her having excess with her ex-boyfriend at 15. She was terrified of her mother, and if you had had the pleasure of meeting her mother, you would understand why she was afraid of her. Her mom was the true definition of a Karen. I am not sure if her mother was aware that they framed an innocent man. Maybe getting rid of an irritating neighbor was well worth it for her. I went to the police with the recorded confession and my testimony, thinking that maybe I can get them to retry the case or dismiss it and free an innocent man. But I was disappointed to find out that the neighbor died in prison 2 years prior. Records indicate that he died of natural causes. How do a 29-year-old man die of natural causes? That is questionable, to say the least. I gave the police a recorded deposition and the audio recorded confession of my girlfriend. It's been 9 months since I went to the police. My ex-girlfriend and her mother have not seen a day in prison. I don't think they have even called them in for questioning. I was able to track down the man's girlfriend and discovered that she now have other children by another man. I told her my story and gave her the audio proof, at least to give her some peace of mind. But to my surprise, she didn't bat an eyelid. To her, he died when he went to prison, and it didn't matter if he was innocent or not. I asked her for her daughter's birthday so I can send her presents. Maybe when she come of age, God willing, I will let her know that her dad was falsely accused. I don't know if there's any point to this, but I would want to know if I was in her shoes. Thank you for staying till the end of this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done that already. Thank you and have a wonderful day.